Welcome to a catalogue of conversations with friends, where we try to explore the complexities of life as we know it. I'm your host and your girl T, and this is Tea Time. Hello and welcome to this extremely pixelated first episode of I think we want to do a little like talky talk type of video once a month maybe. Sorry, the mic is over here. We're sharing it today. We're still working out the kinks. This is trial and error in the first couple of sessions. But yeah, I'm going to be making these videos maybe once a month. I don't know. Let me know in the comments your feedback, your thoughts. I reckon it's nice to have like a little guest, a friend on every time. So this is our guest today. I'll get her to introduce herself in a moment. But I'm going to name these tea time. So we're going to have some tea. Today's tea is not sponsored, but it is the Sweet Dreams by T2. Shout out to Jeff, who got this for my birthday. It's also really hot, which is why you'll see the lighting come in and out. So it's too hot in this house to have it open, but the sun's coming in and out, so the lighting's going to shift. Bear with us. This is going to be like a podcast type episode. So just like leave us on and go do your chores or take us for a walk or something like that. You don't have to watch this. This is purely just for YouTube to have visuals to accompany the sound. But yeah, we're just gonna have a chat, and today's episode, if you can't tell from the title, most likely is gonna just be about careers. So I'm going to have my guests introduce themselves.
Cool. Hey, my name is Danna. I am 26, turning 27. So the perfect range of existential crisis stuff, as we all know.
You've just had your quarter life crisis.
Yeah, but I'm through it now, which is why I'm here.
You're stable.
Yeah. Anyway, I work in marketing in the university sector, and I'm also a freelance musician. I make music for video games. And I met Tina when we were probably 13 or 14, 12 probably. Yes. We were high school friends. We're
still friends, but we're no longer in high school, hence the were.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we were really silly together. And we still are. So, yeah, that's a bit about me.
Amazing. Thank you. You guys already know me, obviously. But for context, yes, we went to the same high school, had a lot of shenanigans together, and we've remained friends since leaving school, but we've gone on very different career paths, I would say. Obviously, as Danna said, she works in music and in the creative field. I work in corporate. I sort of rolled straight out of university into corporate. So yeah, I thought it'd be interesting for us to discuss the differences and our views and things like that in terms of our work and our careers. Obviously, there's no right answer. I don't want anyone to watch this and be like, oh, well, you know, I had my job this way, or I worked this way and it worked out for me, so your way is wrong. Like that's literally the point of this discussion is there's no right way or wrong way. It's just for everyone to put it out there, and hopefully if someone sees this and they're, trying to decide what they want to do with their life coming out of school, they can feel a little bit comfort in seeing like, what is it like if I was to choose option A or B or C, and how it works out for different kinds of people. Cool. So we're going to start with, I guess, just a little bit on when you were in school, when you were little, what did you think you were going to do? Or if you can recall the earliest memory of you're like, I'm going to be this, and you were thinking that for a really long time when you were young.
Yeah, so since I was young, I've always been like the musician of the gang, I guess. And I think I really believed and really I was really hungry for it. I wanted to make it as kind of like a singer-songwriter, and just kind of like live in my passion. Every day I wake up and I get to love what I do, which is, performing, singing, songwriting, and that was how I was going to make my money. But stuff happens along the way, and like you get older, but you start to realize more things about yourself. And sometimes it means that, one, you don't get to live up to your potential, and also two, you kind of get burnt out, and it kind of, you find it like really hard because maybe you don't get enough support, or maybe you just run out of juice and you just kind of like feel like, oh God, now I'm just pushing myself to achieve the dream of my 12-year-old self, but what do I want to do now, right? So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to do when I was a kid. Actually, the whole thing about, I guess, on the topic of living up to your potential, that's a whole can of worms in itself, because the word potential is nothing but stress. Yeah, because like along the way, maybe you have, for me, for example, like I've had my piano teachers say, oh my God, you have so much potential to be like a concert pianist. I had parents who said, oh my God, you can like study overseas and become like super famous. So much potential. I've got like people, professors from my marketing degree actually say, oh my God, like brilliant, you've got potential to do a lot of great things. And all this kind of does is it kind of just makes you feel bad for being where you are. You have all this potential inside you, but what are you doing, right?
Yeah.
And I think that means it's kind of a bit of a scam in itself, because just because you have all this potential doesn't mean you have to go and achieve everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also is like not helpful. I know a lot of times when adults and people say things like, you're so precocious and you have so much potential, you're so talented in this area, it's meant as like a nice thing to encourage you or to express their admiration and stuff like that, but it kind of overlooks what you've done so far. Like, let's say you've composed your first piece of music, or you've like you'd arrange music for school plays and stuff, and you're kind of like, look, I did this thing, and they look at that and they really only ever see, or what they're remarking about is what you haven't done yet in the upcoming period, when you really just want to be seen in that moment and just have them say like, oh, this is really good, like you've developed so, and like look back, right, and be like, you've come so far from where I saw you last time, and like I recognize all the hard work that you've put in. But instead they kind of just give you this, like they extend the goalpost further and they go like, great, but then where is the next like, oh, but you could go so much further, you could be famous internationally, and you're like, but I'm just here now, and like I just want you to be proud and happy for me for how hard I've worked to get to here. And yeah, like when they say you've got potential, it feels like a lot of this pressure to then make up the gap between the future and where you are now.
Yeah, you're so true. And it also comes from a point of like, I don't know about whoever's watching this video, but we both went to these really strict schools, and it was an environment of high achievers. If you weren't a high achiever yourself, you still had high expectations and a high level of perfectionism. Whatever you do, even if like you didn't have that competitiveness, you wanted to at least be perfect to the best of your ability. This doesn't hinder you from real life, but it really sucks the joy out of a lot of things. It stops you from trying new things because you're worried your first go at it won't be perfect. It stops you from, at least for me, once music became really difficult, it stopped me from making more music. I guess throughout my music degree, it got to the point where every single note, I was over-analyzing its potential to the point where I forgot how to write music. Like 2 hours, one note, I don't know where it should go because there are all these possibilities, all this potential for like it to grow.
Yeah.
That's kind of shortly before I burnt out from music.
Yeah, you overcook it.
Yeah, you overcook it.
Yeah.
And you see the problem with the whole like perfectionism, right? Because you really want to do well. But I guess as an adult now, and I guess people in their mid-20s these days, a lot of kind of our self-reflection kind of starts to go into, let's try new things. Let's have a paradigm shift. Let's not make something good. Let's make something fun. Let's be curious. And this goes actively against the way we were raised, which I think is a great thing. And I think, is like the mindset that helps you enjoy things again.
Yeah.
For me, like I've been using video game music to relearn how to enjoy music. I used to want chord harmony changes, every single note, every single, like beat of the bar. It had to be like intellectual, have to be cool. I want to demonstrate to people that I'm knowledgeable, I'm an expert. But nowadays, I like sit on one chord for like 4 bars and just learn to feel the weight of a single chord. Yeah. And it might be like, this might carry across to art, like learn to feel the weight of a color or like a particular shade, right?
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, just like learn to be in the moment and just to feel your presence in your art.
Yeah.
And this will make you enjoy it a lot more.
Yeah. I mean, everyone listening who was a precocious high achiever as a young child and then burnt out in their adulthood, put your hands up. I feel like like this is also just a symptom of like what you said, right? Your potential, because when you're young, I don't know, I have this feeling that obviously there's like a big trend of like returning to childhood these days for adults and like young adults especially, of just like maintain your childlike wonder, like lean into your childlike play. And you know, and it's so funny because like for some people, they like if you were to say, how would you have approached this when you were a kid, we would have like, how can I impress the crap out of whoever's gonna be marking this piece of work, right? Like you said, I have to do 20 somersaults in a row, change chords every single bar, because it has to be like amazing. I have to be like the best. And like, yeah, it was the same for me. Like, how do I, like, where is the bar, and then how do I surpass it? Even if like you're setting your own expectations, and so you set them really high, and then you have to surpass your own expectations, right? And then you go out into the real world, and people say, like, when people start actually recognizing you for your work, and say, you know, you're really good at this, or like you're great at XYZ. And I don't know, do you ever have those moments when you're like, oh, I thought everyone worked at this level, like,
yeah, right,
do we not do we not all work at this level?
yeah.
And you're still really hard on yourself because of that like perfectionism that you've carried from when you're young, right? So you would do something up to like 80% even, and you would say, you know, oh, it's not my best work, but you know, I did my best on this, and people would say, no, this is amazing, like,
yeah,
this is really good, and you're like, you only see the 20%,
yeah.
Whereas like, because that's how you were raised, you're like, how do I do the entire 100%? Whereas everyone else, when you're like seeing other people's work, you appreciate and you look for like all of the amazing 80% that they've put in, right?
Yeah.
So for some people, when you say like, go back to that childlike wonder and how you would approach it as a kid, I'm like, I was an insane perfectionist as a child, and if you asked me to go back to how I usually would do it, it's not gonna change. That's not an improvement to how I would do it now.
Yeah, but it's a good point, because yeah, like effort to return on investment. Oh, that's such a not the
What's
best
your
way.
ROI?
Yeah, but like I have a friend who works in music, and so for example, I would put like 110% into every piece I write, and overanalyze it, overperfect it, burn out, and just hate myself, go on like a doom spiral until deadline, hand it in, repeat. Yeah, depression, really bad, right? But this friend of mine, they would put, say, 60% of their effort in, make something that wasn't perfect but good enough. And then, because they've still got enough energy left, and they're, you know, they will just apply to all these grants, all these commissions, all these opportunities, handing 60% work. And because of the consistency, they're still getting better with everything they write. They're still improving, but because they outlast me and they outlive me, they're so successful, they're being great, they're like thriving, and it's just so good to see. And it kind of brings home the notion that you don't have to make everything perfect. It's not about being perfect, it's just about being good enough, like the baseline. You do that, do it consistently throughout the years, leave enough energy for yourself to recharge, not to hate on yourself. Don't put your entire identity into one piece of work. It's not, you're more than that. And you get to live a much healthy way. You get to have a much more healthy relationship with whatever hobby and art that you're doing. And it's just so much better than putting 100% in, crashing, spiraling.
Yeah. And that applies to like more than just work, right? Like, I know you'll probably hear this I know I've heard it so many times. People just feel like, it's about consistency, it's not about perfection. But if you take the example of like, I don't know, going to the gym, which I hopefully is something that's relatable for a lot of people listening, and you say, okay, I have to get a PR this week. If I don't get a PR, all my work is for nothing. Or you are working on something that is a side project of yours, and you're like, it has to look exactly the way that I see it in my head. Like, I know with art, I really struggle with like, I picture it in my head, and my like understanding of aesthetics and my taste in visuals is much higher than my skill level. And so the disparity of what I can produce versus how I see it and what I want to see is always really, really big. And you always like just see what's not there, and you don't always see what is there. And I feel like, and this has just come to me, but I feel like the things that you need to remind yourself in those moments is probably more along the lines of, like, if you see something that you've done, or you've just done something, and your inner voice is saying, well, that wasn't that good, or like that wasn't good enough, or I can do better, or anything along the lines of that, right? The response generally for you, that's like a healthy way to address it, is be like, you know what? I don't need to be perfect. I just need to get up. Like, I just need to try again. Like, if you are not perfect this time, that's fine. Your failure is actually not being perfect. Your failure is if you let this inability to reach perfection stop you from going again and like trying to get closer.
Yeah.
So like, as long as you keep getting back up, you're always like your friend. Your 60% is always going to start getting better each time.
It's gonna stack.
Yeah,
it's still gonna grow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's gonna, being consistent is the key.
Yeah.
Much like gym, there's also diet advice that I kind of read, and it was really helpful. It was like sticking to a diet plan 100%, but lasting for 2 weeks. That's not going to be good as if you like stick to like approximately the plan, but last for 2 years.
Yeah.
Like the results are going to be super, super different, right? It's more about just the practice of being consistent. The practice of being consistent, and the key to have a good relationship with your art across your entire life is to accept yourself when you don't look the best, when you don't feel the best about it, when you aren't able to give it the best. Because it's not failure if it doesn't meet your expectations. It's just a part of the process.
Yeah, it's about acceptance. You're right. It's not, obviously you still need to feel the compelledness to be better than you from yesterday, but it's you need to have compassion and acceptance for yourself where you are now. Like, you can't always be comparing yourself to who you could be tomorrow and then like beating yourself up for not actually being there yet. You need to just be like, okay, this is where I am today. It may not be better than yesterday's, but I'm okay with that because I did my best today, and then tomorrow I'll try again and be harder.
Yeah.
And the worst thing where you don't want to be is, I didn't get to a certain level today. That means I'm a terrible person. There's no point in trying tomorrow, or there's no point in trying again because I'm never going to be able to do it. Like, that's where you don't want to end up. That's where it starts being a problem. It's not a problem if you can't do it perfectly, or you can't do it on the first try, or you do it on 10,000 tries and you still can't do it. That doesn't matter. You only lose when you give up.
Yeah, and that's process. Process means finding different solutions, and sometimes the best solution is to turn over the chapter, start it blank again, and just accept that what you made yesterday was what you could make yesterday. Yeah. And I guess to like wrap up the whole like childhood dream stuff, right?
The tangent.
Yeah, like, I guess if I saw 15-year-old me right now, yes, I didn't live up to what I wanted to be, but there are two reasons why this happened. The first one is, now, the more you live, the longer you get to live, the more you learn about yourself and what suits you and what is good for you. And I realized now at 26 that I don't want to be holed up in my room 7 hours a day, alone, making music, pumping out like stuff. I want to be with people, working with people, being collaborative. I want to have a healthy lifestyle. And this sometimes means I have a day job on top of doing like freelance stuff. So yeah, what you know now, you are much wiser and more knowledgeable now than you were back then. So sometimes dreams are not meant to last because you just simply know yourself more. So that's nothing to regret about. And the second thing is that the whole like potential, like, you got to stop seeing potential as something you never lived up to. Instead, understand that the whole like potential stuff, they're only opportunities to you. Take them if you want to, but yeah, you don't have to achieve anything you don't really intuitively want to. At the end of the day, 26, it's about what you want to do, how you want to live the remainder 2/3 of your life, which isn't long. So just like feel the sun on your skin, have a delicious fruit, just live life the way you want.
I say this to people sometimes, and it sounds really pointless when I say it, but sometimes in the right situations, when you hear it, it's exactly what you need to hear. But normally when you find yourself in like between a rock and a hard place, or in those situations where you're like, I don't know what the right thing to do is, there is no right thing. Like 99% of the time, there is no right thing, because you don't actually know what's going to happen if you make this decision or that, right? You can't actually tell 20 years down the line if you look back and you say, oh yeah, I made the right decision. There is only the decision that you make. So once you take the pressure off of I have to make the perfect decision. I have to make no mistakes. I can't fail. I can't make the wrong decision. Like, at the end of the day, decisions get made every single second by every person on this planet. And no matter what happens, those decisions have to get made and consequences will follow. There is no ability to control that. If it's not meant to go correctly, it will not go correctly no matter how hard you try and control it. You can't control the outcome of the decisions that you're making, and you therefore can't control whether you make the right decision or not, because you don't know what's going to happen. There is no right decision. There is no right path, no right outcome. There is just the decision that you make now. And so that's why it's so important to be like, you have to be in a place where you're able to trust yourself and intuitively hear what you're trying to say to yourself. But you have to trust your gut and your intuition on what you feel is right for you to do, because most of the time that is the decision you should make. There's nothing else really to go off of. There is no, if I become an artist, I'm going to be starving. Do you know that? Like, do you actually know what's going to... Have you traveled to the future? You've spoken to yourself in 70 years. Do you know how hard you're going to fight for it? Like, I don't know that you could have, when you were in high school, decided, like, I can't be a musician because XYZ. Or I can't be a musician because I know, like, XYZ. You were just like, look, this feels like the thing that I really want to do. I'm just going to give it a red hot go. You don't know what's going to happen afterwards. But, like, you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't trust your gut and you end up doing what you think other people think you should do, or what you think you should be doing.
Yeah, for sure. It's like not failures, but like kind of digging yourself a dead end is a part of what it means to grow as a person.
Sometimes you have to just dig yourself into a hole, and like, you talk to people who are 50, 60, 70 and they have amazing life stories. They guarantee you, at least at one point in their life, they were like, I was at rock bottom. I had nothing. I had failed so many times. It was the worst time of my life. And they still made it to whatever that age was, and they had a really colorful life. And you probably talk to them and you're like, wow, you're amazing. Yeah. But it's like, you could just go through that yourself. You just obviously don't want to take the risk, or you don't want to. And that's fine. But it's like, just, you need to be honest to yourself about those decisions that you're making.
Yeah. And also, can I add that, like, at least in the society, the privilege that we have as this generation, and you have people like, we can afford to dig ourselves into a hole and dig somewhere else. Like, we can, like, we have the privilege to do a 180 career change if we felt like it. We have the privilege to quit out of something because we know better. So what are you waiting for? Make some mistakes, because like lots of people in the world don't get this privilege. What you pick at 16 is what you do for the rest of your life, right? Because we do have this privilege, it just makes exploring more fun. So, yeah. This is, we're still on a tangent, probably never going to get to these questions, which is fine. Maybe this episode won't be about careers, but it sort of relates to this idea where children of immigrants, you will understand, but sometimes you'll find that your parents are really unhappy with the way that you are, I guess, addressing certain issues in your life. So you've spoken to your parents about, you know, oh, I feel like I'm languishing. I am unhappy about certain, like, we are at the pinnacle of Maslow's hierarchy. We are in the self-actualization so hard, right? But like, our parents' generations definitely were not, and their parents definitely, like, people who come from backgrounds that have had to flee from war and occupation and everything like that, like the Cultural Revolution in China, like, for one. So obviously they come from a different background to us, and they can sometimes not totally understand, you know, how can you have all of these concerns about anxiety and depression? Like, I never had these when I was young. Like, it's just because you kids are too comfortable. I don't know if you've ever heard that. Oh, God, yeah.
It's because your generation is too comfortable. You have it too easy.
You're not suffering enough.
When I was your age, like, all this stuff, right? But it's like this hilarious paradox, because it's kind of like, this is why you work so hard. You work so hard so that I could free myself from those base levels of the hierarchy to achieve actualization. You only get to actualization when you have safety, food, shelter, all of that stuff, which is what our parents work so hard to give us. And they've done it, and we've gotten there, and now they're like, why are you so enlightened? Why don't you have any of these concerns about, you know, like, where you're going to sleep, where the next meal is going to come from, all of these things that I had to worry about when you're young. And it's like, definitely recognizing the privilege that we've been afforded by our parents to, as a generation, I want to say, for most of us, to now be in a position to really think about things like, you know, like, ikigai is the thing that I'm doing for my career, something that I actually want to be doing with my life. In the encroachment of the importance of work-life balance, quiet quitting, like, all of this stuff that's now coming up with our generation being on the internet, the connectivity, globalization of information, like all of these interconnected aspects and influences, and they sort of all like it's like the perfect storm of just self and like, what should I be doing? How can I do it to the best? How can I be happy, knowing that happiness is an ephemeral emotion? You can't be happy all the time. How do I balance that with like the people that pave the way for me? How do I connect with them still, even though I'm struggling with my own issues? How do I validate myself and others? How do I hold space? Like, there's way too many. When you get to that top level, there are so many things up there that you just, even as a whole generation, as a whole world connected through the internet, we all still cannot even begin to unpack and answer. And like, it's just absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Where we are now.
Yeah. I agree.
Pivoting to the actual, back to careers if we have time. So obviously you said you wanted to be a musician when you were young.
Yeah.
And spoiler alert, that is the path you went down for a while after high school.
Yeah.
So can you share a little bit of a summary of like where your career trajectory looked like after high school and up until now, sort of like what you did when you changed and things like that?
Yeah, I did a bachelor's of music. I did piano for 1 year, then majored in composition for 2 more years, and then did honors for 1 more year, and then crashed.
Yeah, that's a lot. I'm not surprised you crashed.
But I think there are lots of things that led to that crash. That crash, by the way, was about 3 years ago. But what happened was, I think it was just setting so much expectations onto yourself. I was really boxing myself in by trying to be perfect with everything I was writing. There came to a point where the university gave me a really cool opportunity to write a piece for anything I wanted. They would just let me have the opportunity and I can fulfill any vision of my dream. So I kind of set the bar really high for myself. I made like a 7-minute or something piece for like a string orchestra. I wanted to do everything. But with deadlines, I just really couldn't meet the deadline with the vision I had. So I pumped out something that in my mind was very mid, very lukewarm. It wasn't the best. But around that time, I was just kind of pushing myself to the point where it wasn't about enjoying the process and being creatively curious. It wasn't about the music anymore. It was about me trying my best not to look bad in front of other people. I really didn't want this piece to represent me because I didn't want people to think that this was all I was capable of. I promise I'm more than that. And then the more you do that, the heavier every note gets. It came out, I got over it. I didn't get over it actually. It kind of blew my brain a little bit. And for a year after that, around when I graduated, I just didn't really listen to music for a year. I would hear a song and it would mean nothing to me. Like it would evoke no emotion. It was kind of like the whole sensation of music was numb to me. Luckily during that time though, I was also inspired to learn marketing. When I was a kid, I had this vision outside of being a songwriter, which was that I wanted to make a difference in the world with music. And I wanted to change people's lives through music, but I didn't know how I was actually going to do that. Like, was I going to write a song and it was going to be a hit and I'm going to be like, whoa? Or was it going to be like, I'm going to, go on stage and make someone cry? Like, I didn't know how I was going to do that. Yeah. But I made some friends with people who worked in marketing and they were doing things, very, very nice things. Like they were giving artists opportunities. They were kind of paving a way for students to spotlight their work. And it aligned with the mission I had since I was a kid. And I thought, oh, actually, being a performer, being a musician isn't the only way I can make a difference in this world with music. What if I go into marketing and I can create opportunities for future musicians to kind of matchmake audiences, to bring audiences, to kind of make a difference through pushing and advocating for music. So that kind of got me interested in marketing. So while I was having the whole existential identity crisis of music on the side, being like, oh my God, I feel nothing with music now. Who even am I? My whole life, I've been known as that musician. Now I don't even like music. I'm nothing anymore. while that is brewing in one half of my mind, the other half was, cool, I want to learn about marketing. I'm really curious. Oh my God, marketing is just psychology, but like you can get results from it. Like this is actually really cool. Oh, what's branding? Oh, it's advertising. Oh my God, what's public relations? And I start to keep myself busy so I'm not kind of just drowning in my own depression the whole day.
Yep.
I've still got something else to kind of be curious about. And I guess while these were simultaneously developing, I started kind of getting back into music because I found myself in other places. I found, I kind of reconnected with the people who I love socially. I started, being curious about different disciplines, different knowledge, different learnings that made my life very exciting. And that all kind of slowly dripped its way back into my creative output. And it slowly, after a year of no music, I wanted to kind of go back into music, create some things, but with more life lived experiences around me. And that's kind of where I am right now, kind of rediscovering how to enjoy music, but this time not because I want to make something out of it, not because I want to look good or I want to like be successful, change the world or anything, but just because I want to fiddle with something. Have it not mean anything to me, so I don't have pressure to commit to it when I'm all empty with no juice inside. And just kind of like regrow the seed, but this time grow it right, so that now I'm learning. I kind of forgot a lot of the things I learned at uni, a lot of the the complex like
statistics. I don't know her.
And for me, like my music degree, all the kind of special techniques I kind of forgot. And I love it because now I can rediscover it, but with better foundations, with better mental foundations and better psychological foundations that make me feel like, I'm learning how to fix my relationship with music again. And it's just me and music and not me as music against everyone in the world.
Do you feel like, or how do you feel about the trajectory of the path that you took, right? Because obviously you went through your degrees and then you went through the attempts of being a musician, studying music, getting that burnout, having to sort of regrow from square zero. If you could do it again, like how do you feel about that whole thing? And then if you could do it again, do you feel like it was a necessary evil for you to get to where you are now,
Oh my God.
You feel like if you just chose the other option when you were younger, would you be better off, or,
Oh no, I would hate myself or whoever held me accountable to go straight to marketing. Like you have to go through this yourself. Otherwise you never like truly understand. It's always like the what ifs, right?
I could have been a world famous musician.
If
only I tried when I was young.
I think it was necessary for me to stop liking the one passion that made me who I was. And completely accept
so you
that.
Could like find yourself.
And it forced me to build a life around it, build more identities rather than just being the musician. Right? Like have so many more things that I love about life to then now like fix up everything that was kind of hurting me. And I think only through this could I have done it. If I out of high school, I was like, you know what? Look, I did my industry research, my market research. I have very low probability of making it as a musician in terms of like getting signed or something. I'm just not going to bother. Then that's going to hurt because my whole life I would just be like, oh, what if? What if?
Smothering you're smothering a very tender flame, like one that you've been nurturing since you were a child, which is way harder than it sounds for you to just give up on something like that. And like with this now, like I love marketing. I think it's a great like brain sizzler, it stimulates your everyday kind of thinking. It keeps you on your toes. I don't know if I would have enjoyed my alternate choice if I had that concern, like the what if in the background. But now that I've burnt out through music, I've learnt the hard way. I can really enjoy both sides now. I can enjoy my day job because it's easy and I do a good enough job. And I get my social fulfillment. It's a great workplace. I love it there. And I go home, I make music, and I don't put that pressure on myself because it's not my one and only. Music is not my only source of income.
I can have fun. So at the end of the day, you really need to put yourself out there and like kind of see what burns, see what feels right, and min-max optimize to your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. That kind of falls in line with what we said before around like you have to dig that hole.
Yeah, digging that hole.
It's gonna suck. It's lying in that hole while it rains on you, but you have to dig that hole.
Yeah.
Like there's no way around it, because you wouldn't have been happy if you just went straight as the crow flies to where you are now.
Yeah.
And it's so funny that you mention like you have to lose your passion to find yourself.
You definitely don't. Disclaimer.
No, you don't have to.
You don't have to. But it coupled with like perfectionism since childhood, right? If you do lose your passion, there's a silver lining. Yeah. And a lot of new things about yourself will sprout and open up because you've lost something, so you have to search for other things.
Yeah. I feel like I should share a little bit about myself.
You should.
But it feels
It's
weird
your
just talking
side
to
now.
myself. Really quickly, for anyone interested, if you saw my day in the life video, I work in corporate. So my career trajectory, I feel like, is very, very straight. Actually, maybe not that straight, but generally it's headed in the one direction. So I graduated high school, same as you. I did one degree, so I did a degree in business. And during that time, I did a lot of internships here and there, as everyone else in my degree did at the time, to get experience. I rolled immediately. Well, actually, no, I took a 6-month gap year. I took a gap 6 month before I started, because I asked them to delay my start date. But I essentially rolled straight into a full-time job in corporate. And I've been working there now, I want to say, for the past 4 years. So give or take, for the past few years. And I haven't really technically taken a break from anything since school, really. I just rolled straight into work. And I wouldn't say that I ever dug myself into a hole as drastically. There were definitely periods in uni and maybe sometimes during my work career where I was a little bit like listless. Like I was kind of like, I don't really find meaning in anything that I'm doing. I'm kind of just doing it. Like I'm just doing the motions and I don't understand what of it that makes me happy. Am I really happy? Am I feeling anything? It was a little bit of a numb period. But for those of you that don't know, I'm taking a sabbatical this year. So I'm actually taking the year off because I've decided, first of all, that it's the right time in my career to be taking a break and to, you know, pause that momentum. But then also to just give myself the time that I never had as a kid, or not as a kid, but like as a young adult, to put time into the hobbies that I wanted to explore that I never got the chance to because I rolled straight into corporate. So I guess my hole is it's a very shallow hole, but it's a very long one. It's more like a trench. Like I've just digged myself into the lack of opportunities. So the fact that I can't really take on other things because I'm no longer a uni student and I don't have the flexible schedule to be able to do things where I can shift my work around and things like that, where compared to if I was to work in hospitality or to work part-time or to do a shift role or something like that, right? And I have lots of friends who have done lots of other different types of work who have gone, you know, either in the same degree as me, or they've done a different degree, or they've dropped out midway, or they've changed degrees midway and then they've just done something else. And I feel like one of the reasons that I ended up taking this career break as well is from speaking to so many people doing so many different things. You can make a living doing so many different things. Like a proper living sometimes as well. Like I know there is like the Australian number of how much you'd have to earn for the average Australian to feel like you're secure or rich. But also like there are plenty of people who live on below that and they have a wonderful life. Like you can still exist and have experiences and live your little life without needing to be on, you know, a certain salary if you're okay with the lifestyle that you would be having in that scenario. But it's like there's so much emphasis put on like being well off, being financially secure. You have to be living at this standard of living to be happy. And then you get to that standard and you're like, well, am I happy? Like, am I doing the things that really are important to me, that enrich my life, that are meaningful to me? Or am I able to like sacrifice some aspect of that to then pursue the opportunity to see if there's something else that works for me, which is, you know, why many people take sabbaticals. And that's kind of why I wanted to take a break. So, you know, this is all to say there is no correct way to go out of high school, out of uni.
We all suffer.
You will all suffer. There's like 4 inevitable things in life. What is it? Death, taxes, suffering.
And...
Or maybe there's 3 things. What is it?
I don't know.
Well, the three things you can't escape are death, taxes, and suffering, aka digging yourself into a hole. It's gonna happen to everybody, but it's part of the fun. That's just what living life means. You're just a little sim character, making mistakes, getting accomplishments, doing things right, doing things wrong, and at the end of the game, you have all of these memories to look back on. So, now that we've reviewed where we came from, where we wanted to go, where do you see yourself going from this point onwards? Maybe in the next few years, 5 years, 10 years, do you see, and if you're our employers, you're not listening to this, do you see yourself staying in your current trajectory? Do you find yourself maybe like changing industries?
I think for people who have experienced, like due to perfectionism or like high achieving tendencies, any sort of burnout throughout their lives, I think one thing that is really hard that we should do more often is to try your best to go back to your comfort zone. And that's what I'm going to do for the next 5 years.
Find your comfort zone and just stay there.
Just learn to be comfortable where you are. Like if you like, because I work in social media advertising now, and in the world of social media, which is essentially our third place now. If you've been on TikTok, you'll know what the third place trend is.
I don't know what the third place is. Can you explain?
Okay, yeah, it's this theory that the reason why our parents' generation and like older might have been a lot more happy is because they have a third place. They have home, they have work, and their third place might be like the pub, where they'll hang out to de-stress locally with the community,
right,
for example. But for us, our third place is social media.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and on social media, like every day, it's just a whole ton of selling aspiration, right? Quick, fast-paced aspiration. So you never really get to be in the zone of being content in the present, sorry. So yeah, I think something really important to do is like to really sit back and be like, okay, I'm here. Maybe it's not where I want to be, but it's every choice that I've made has been problem solving everything from my past. And there's a lot I can be proud of and to learn to be comfortable in at this very moment. Whether that is not thinking about getting the next promotion or jumping to the next step very fast. Whether that is just, learning to feel comfortable in your own skin. And if you're not, learning to find, how to sit comfortably with yourself. That is really important, I feel like. Yeah, so that's what I'll be doing in the next few years. I'm a bit wary right now in my life of having very shallow aspirations, egotistical, peer-based, industry-based, externally-based aspirations. Just want to kind of learn what it means to be fully in the present. So stop stressing about things, you can't really stop feeling negative emotions, but kind of min-max your emotional cycles so you can optimize your happiness when it comes, Yeah.
No, I totally agree. I also find it really interesting that, like, I guess this idea of contentment, which I find a lot of people are gravitating towards in that, I don't know if you've seen like this, I like this little life trend.
No,
like
what is that?
It's like a song. This woman basically sings, I think I like my little life. And it's people just doing like the most mundane things to that sound. But it's this representation of like, your life doesn't have to be, shiny and bustling. And obviously there are people who are go-getters and hustlers, and by nature, like, that's their personality and that's how they feel enrichment, and that's totally fine. Like, go you. But there's also a lot of people, I think, gently realizing like, oh, that's not me. I actually thrive by living slow, just taking in the little things that other people might not notice.
Yeah.
And I've like said this to people before when I had someone ask me, like, if money wasn't an issue and you didn't really have to work, what would you do? Where would you go? And I said, honestly, if I didn't have to worry about, working and all that stuff, I would just live my little life. This was before the trend as well. I literally said to him, I was like, I'm just going to live my little life. And he said, what does that mean? And I said, do my little laundry, go get little groceries, read my little book, watch my little TV shows, play my game.
Yeah.
Do whatever I want to do in the time that I have without the pressure of, expectation of, what have you achieved this year? What have you done this week? How productive have you been today? Like, that sort of overarching expectation. And the person who asked me the question said, you are the first person I have asked this question to who has given me that answer.
Really?
Every other person has said, I would go traveling.
Oh.
I would start my own business.
Right.
I would blah, blah, blah. And he said, I feel the same way. And you're the first person who's given me the same answer. And I was so shocked, but also not shocked. Because even when I went on this career break, people at work would ask me, like, so what are you going to do with your time? Are you going to go traveling? And I was like, no.
I'm just going to sleep in.
No,
couch potato.
I'm using this time for art, obviously, like to pursue the things that I wanted to do. But
I would sleep in.
Also at the same time, like it's just funny that we we default to this expectation of achievement, of hustle and bustle and shiny things to then bring back and show the group. Like and it's really good that you're, I guess, from a career perspective as well, thinking of it in terms of, okay, what am I content with? What am I happy to just be okay with? And that's totally fine.
So true. I think this also can be like, it changes with age as well. So maybe you used to be someone who was like me, like very hustle bustle. I want to like get there quick. I'm running out of time. I need to get there real fast. And then maybe like you just age and then your priorities change.
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure. Like a lot of things really depend on, at the end of the day, like what makes you feel fulfilled. And you can't just keep doing the one thing forever. Well, you can, depending on the type of person, I guess, right? It's just important to know that, like, you have a finite time before, like it'll be the last time you wake up and you will literally dissipate from the face of the earth. And it's wishful thinking to think that you'll make it until 60. So, like,
touch wood.
For the person who is not depressed, the question would be like, if you only had like, say, 30-40 years left to live until you literally just dissipate off the face of the earth and become dust, what are you curious about? And like, what do you want to try? Like, what do you want to experience? What sensations do you want to feel for the first time, or forever, or like for the few years you have left, right? But basically the idea is that, like, how you want to spend your time is yours and yours alone. Don't let things that don't matter to you influence how you choose that precious resource, how you spend that precious resource. At the end of the day, know what you want. As long as you know what you want, everything you do is fine and will be okay.
Yeah. And even if you don't know what you want, that is also okay.
True, yes.
Like, if you're young and you're like, I don't know what I want to do, I don't even know what I like, that's okay.
That's okay.
That's so normal. You are so valid. That's literally how I felt when I was in school. And it's also like why some people just go back to school, like they go to uni and take another course because they want to try out new things and they want to, spend more time trying to figure out what exactly it is they want to spend their life doing. But I think if you're in that position, what's really helpful to think about is the fact that it's not like getting a tattoo. Even with a tattoo, you can get tattoos lasered. But it's not like getting a tattoo in the sense that you get to pick once and that's it. Because when you choose a career, there are people who are 30, 40 years old career changers who used to work in, for example, mining, and then they went and they did TAFE for IT and now they work in IT. Like, you can change your career at any point. You really just have to figure out, short-term wise, what do I want to try?
Yes.
What do I want to do for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years?
Yeah.
And just know that at any point you can just save game and go play another one. Like, there's no right or wrong decision. There's just a decision that you make right now, and later on there will be another decision that you make, but you can't decide right now which decision is right one. You just got to go with how you feel. And sometimes if you feel nothing, maybe talk to your friends, talk to your peers, and be like, what would you say about me if you were to describe me to someone? What are some of the things you see that I'm interested in? What do you think is a good fit for me? Talk to your careers counselor. I know they're not always helpful, but when they're helpful, they're really helpful. Like,
like, to add on to that, as someone who works at a university, the way we're advertising to you folks who are young and free,
you
not
listeners.
free, sorry, but what we've been advertising has kind of been like, if it's an undergraduate degree, if it's just a bachelor's, it's just there to help you try something new. And you'll see that once you finish your bachelor's, you have so many different fields of master's degrees available to you. They don't really gatekeep master's degrees from like different disciplines against each other anymore. So like, your bachelor's is really there to like help you explore what you want to do with your life. And then once you figure stuff out, or once you have a better idea, then you can go forth and undertake further study. And the gate will literally not close on you. So you're fine.
You don't even really have to go to uni either.
True.
Like there are lots of people who just go full send straight out of school.
Yeah.
And they do great, or they try lots of different things. The craziest thing is if you have a mentor or someone who's older, more established in their career, or, you know, maybe it's one of your parents' friends or something like that, ask them about their career journey, because I bet you, I'm going to gamble at least half of the time, they have had a crazy career path. Like someone that I know, I spoke to them last year before I left, and they told me that they, you know, spent time working at a ski resort and, you know, being like a gap year person, and now they're like someone really senior at like a really big company. And it's like what you do earlier in your career, and I know there's a whole like, but my experience, my CV, but it doesn't always define what you end up doing. Like I know someone who is really, really successful and really senior in a position, and they're like a part-time musician and no one at work knows it. And like they're a really good musician as well. I have their music saved to my playlist. But it's like, I think they spent time as like maybe a PT when they were younger as well, and now they work in like corporate. So genuinely just do whatever takes your fancy. It's never too late to just like take something else up. As long as you've got the courage and the will to put in the work that's required to like pick up the skills, there's nothing, bar maybe a handful of things that's gate kept from you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And to add on to like more examples, I have 2 different friends who did the Bachelor of Science, and these were both friends who didn't really know quite what they wanted to do. The Bachelor of Science, one of them now works at like at a bank, and the other person now works in the construction industry. Like, it's, you never know. You never know. And you can afford to not know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's your life. You can't afford to not know. You only get one chance. You YOLO. You only get one chance at this. You just gotta do the stuff that you want to do. And when you fail, you just can't give up. Those are the 2 takeaways. If you had advice at the end of this episode that you need, I'll go first so you have time to think.
Okay.
But it's those things that we said, right? You only lose if you give up and you stop trying. And YOLO, you only get one chance. It's too small of a opportunity to not do the things that you want to try and have the privilege to even fail at. So don't deny yourself that before you even get to it.
My advice would be, you can do multiple things in your life.
Yes.
So don't feel like if you choose one thing, everything else shuts down. That's all. But another super unrelated piece of advice is know what lifestyle you want to live.
Yes.
Day to day. If you want like a really carefree job, 9 to 5, clock off sharp at 5, go home and do your other stuff, like your hobbies and stuff. Don't work in a field where you have to be on call 24/7. Don't work in an industry where that's the standard.
Do your research.
Yeah.
Talk to people.
That would be pretty helpful. So know what kind of lifestyle, daily life you want, and avoid industries where they actively don't let you achieve that.
Yeah. Or just know your trade-off soon. But I one time saw a post of someone anonymously asking, where can I find a job that pays 6 figures, works 9 to 5, has really good benefits? Just like all of these perfection requests. And everyone was like laugh reacting to it, being like, mate, you have a better chance of seeing pigs fly. Like, this job does not exist. So be realistic with yourself. If there's a holy triangle of money, time, and I think it's like
taxes.
I think it's
health.
Like how much you're paid, the enjoyment of the work that you're doing, and your work-life balance, and you only get 2. Understand honestly with yourself which ones you're able to not have, because you can't have all 3 realistically at most, if any, jobs. One of these will slip a little closer to the center compared to the other 2. So being clear on that, being clear on the lifestyle that you're happy to have, you'd be content with, the things that you can live without, the things that you absolutely need to have, and then go forth with those requirements and seek the opportunities that you want to try and see how that pans out.
Also, totally, you didn't ask for this, but my final piece of advice is to not make one thing your everything. Don't bank your entire identity on one thing. But on the other hand, when you're young, it does mean a lot to you. Like one thing might mean a lot to you. So maybe it's something that you have to live and learn through. So take it or leave it, but know that you're so much more than just what you're good at.
All right. Thank you very much for coming on my little channel, having a little talk.
It is a joy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed us talking for the past however many minutes. This will be after I edit it. As I mentioned, this is the very first episode, so please be nice. But if you have any feedback on the content that we cover, the structure that we have, the format that we're delivering it in, anything like that, please leave it in the comments below. I'm very, very honored if anyone actually listens to this entire thing and has thoughts and constructive criticism on it as well. And as always, I will still be doing my other videos on the side, but if you have ideas for things you want to hear in the future, please let me know as well. And I will see you guys in the next episode of Tea Time. Thank you, Danna. Bye.